the brain, you could picture it in 3D, but 2D slices are also very practical to get some information, especially when you know exactly what you're aiming at, which kind of information you want to look at in the brain. So for example, you have three cuts. You have this cut where you see the ventricles, or these water pockets in the middle of the brain. You can see in this T1 image that the white matter is in white and the gray matter is in gray, which is very practical. Just so that you know, the gray matter is pretty much the set of processing units of the brain. So that's where all of the different operations will be made. And then the gray matter, or the cortex is also called, is different parts of the cortex or gray matter will be linked together via the connections that are in white matter. So white matter is literally just a bunch of cables. That's the one way to see it. We call them axonal fibers, axons, axonal bundles. There are multiple ways to call them. But every time I will say fiber in this presentation or axons, I am referring to the white matter. And its only purpose is joining different parts of the gray matter, and also joining these different parts of the brain stem. And the brain stem is right here and goes to your spine and will then join the rest of your body. So this is the main point. So the ventricles that you see here is also here in this left view of the brain. And this one is a front view of the brain. So you see the ventricles here. You see the spine here. You see the spine kind of here. You see the carotids here. So that's pretty much a big picture of the brain. And here you have the skull. Here we go. Different ways to call these slices. I may refer to them, so I will tell them now. You have what's called the axial slice, which is this cut of the brain. You have the coronal slice and the sagittal slice. Just to refer on the three slices I'm showing on the right, this is the axial, this is the coronal, and this is the sagittal. And the coronal, you can see it because this looks a bit like a crown seen from that point of view. So that's one way to refer to it. Another thing that we use heavily in this field is color-coded orientations. So I would better just talk about it now. So for example, this is something that we call an orientation distribution function, or ODF. It's just one way to picture orientations in a 3D space. So it is a convenient way, and you see that it has colors. And they seem to be linked to orientation, like this vertical axis would be blue, and the XY axis in the plane would be red and green, respectively. Actually, if I could use an XYZ axis, just XYZ don't mean much when you look at a brain like this. Actually, X is usually used for left, right, that you would see either from the top here or from the front, left, right of the brain. The Y is anterior and posterior. So anterior is the front and posterior is the back of the brain. And inferior, superior would be Z. So superior would be the top and inferior would be the bottom. That's what we use. And usually you have this RGB, red, green, blue color coding for X, Y, Z. That's pretty much it. And Tractography 101, just to give you some idea, tractography is usually the fact of having all of these spaghetti-like fibers. And I will heavily use memes from this page on Facebook because they're very informative most of the time. Actually, you can learn a lot from just looking at these memes. And it's a funny way to do that. So I will heavily use it. So you have these spaghettis, and some people, they tend to say a lot of stuff about these spaghettis, and they don't actually, they are usually not true. So that's another meme that you can use. For example, the first thing is FA is a direct measure of white matter integrity, meaning that this fractional anisotropy, which is an index between 0 and 1, is a good way to say the white matter is in good condition. That we know definitely is not true. That's why we had to refer to the micro-FA in the tensor-valued encoding field. So the micro-FA is another kind of measure of anisotropy, but it is actually more related to this integrity than FA. Then this is a connectome, like a tractography view of the same thing. So I don't really need that. And this one is the one that I really want to emphasize right now, that the streamline, which is the name of each of these spaghetti in this connection map of the brain represents the path of an axon. This is definitely not true. So I will go back to this later, but don't assume that the spaghettis that you're going to see are axons. These are not the same. Hopefully, they are heavily correlated together, and you can kind of assume that axons will propagate the same way as the spaghettis. Doesn't mean that it is exactly the same thing. The last one is just something that doesn't exist. This one you can actually find in actual papers.